What's up, space pirates? This is your admiral, the Dread Pirate Dr. Disaster. And sometimes, somebody fails at something so hard that they end up admitting how bad they got their butts kicked, even when they don't mean to admit it.
What the hell are you doing?
I'm kicking my ass! Do you mind?
Yeah, Lucasfilm played itself with all of their decisions in Star Wars for the past several years, to the point that everyone is checked out, and when they do finally put out a show which people seem to think is okay, as they've done with Skeleton Crew, whose Rotten Tomatoes score is still sitting at a solid 80%. It's one of the rare shows where both critics and audience members seem to like it. But when they finally release a show that people like, showing off what the Star Wars franchise can be like if done well, it doesn't matter because nobody is watching it.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
They know. They just don't care.
The ratings for Skeleton Crew's first few weeks have been abysmal, as we've discussed here a few times, and the new data is in for the show's third week, and things are still looking extremely wretched, especially considering the time of year when people should be staying inside because it's colder outside, and they should be watching TV. You would think that a new Star Wars show with solid reviews would have people watching in droves, but Star Wars apathy is a major phenomenon now. And even Disney is finally admitting it, even though they kinda don't mean to. But the truth has a way of coming out when talking about money, because at the end of the day, we all know the real reason that a corporation like Disney is making Star Wars movies and shows.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a shitload of money.
Alright, me hearties, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We just passed another subscriber milestone, so it is already time to ask that burning question.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow?
Yo!
We now have 109,000 space pirate a-holes in this crew of ours, and as is the custom on this channel, with every 1,000 subscribers, we add a new ship to the fleet in order to house the newcomers. This time, one of you suggested that we add the High Charity from Halo, which can be seen floating around right here. If any of you guys have recommendations for future ships, drop them into the comment section and we will add them to the list. Super chats get bumped to the top of the list. And also, for your reference, I added a list of all these ships that are already in the fleet to the description of this video. But in any event, thanks for being here, and I will do my best to continue to earn your viewership.
I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
But alright, let's look at the viewership of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and then we'll take a look at what this Disney executive said about how Lucasfilm has absolutely failed with these Star Wars shows. So, for the last couple weeks, we have been using Luminate to see what the viewership figures were for TV shows. Luminate is a service very similar to the Nielsen Top 10, if you aren't familiar. The biggest difference is that Nielsen is always a month behind, and Luminate gives us this information almost immediately. So, with that in mind, we have data for this week's episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew already. Now, if you look here, you can see that on the Luminate Top 10 list, Skeleton Crew is nowhere to be found. Once again, this list is dominated by Netflix and Paramount Plus. Disney Plus is absolutely losing the streaming war in a big way, despite the advantages they have of owning all kinds of popular and beloved IP. I guess it turns out that after a while, just putting out shows and movies with the title of a popular name is not enough. You actually have to deliver quality for people to actually make them want to tune in. Because here's the thing, hitting this top 10 list should not have been hard for a Star Wars show. If you look down at the bottom of the list, the show 100 Years of Solitude was at number 10 with about 307 million minutes watched. If Star Wars still had its legions of fans from before, it would have crushed that number easily. It's estimated that the original Mandalorian season had over 20 million viewers, which, keep in mind, that by then, a good number of Star Wars fans were already gone by the time the original Mandalorian came out. They had checked out due to the sequel trilogy, so that 20 million plus isn't even full strength. But if those 20 million viewers from The Mandalorian all watched the one episode of Skeleton Crew that came out this week, which is only 30 minutes long, they would have been right in the middle of this top 10, no problem. But they lost us, and it's so bad that we don't even know how low the viewership is exactly, because they haven't even cracked the top 10 to show us what the viewership figures are. But this article here shows us what Disney executive Alan Bergman had to say about the results of the recent Star Wars shows. Naturally, it's couched in safe corporate talk, but he admits that they are failing, even if he doesn't mean to. And of course, Yahoo News here tries their damnedest to give this a positive spin. They're talking about the show The Acolyte at first, saying critics lauded the show for taking a fresh approach to the Star Wars universe, but a vocal contingent of fans rejecting the series, with some labeling it as woke for casting a black LGBTQ actor as the lead. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score for The Acolyte stands at 78%, but the user score is just 18%. And I love how they just have to boil down people's complaints about The Acolyte to skin color and sexual preference, because if they're honest about what we're saying, that the show's writing was bloody awful and the premise was stupid, then they'd have to admit straight away how badly they've screwed this up, how badly they've lost the fans. And I love how they say that we're just a lowly vocal contingent of the fan base. It's funny how just a vocal contingent managed to drop the Rotten Tomatoes score down to 18%. But whatever. Continuing on, the article says, The Acolyte made its Nielsen streaming top 10 debut with the release of its first 2 episodes, which racked up nearly 500 million minutes viewed. 2 weeks later, it fell out of the top 10 ranking, though 6 weeks later, with the release of its finale, it returned in the bottom spot. That's something that Skeleton Crew, by the way, has not managed to accomplish yet. We don't know how poorly it's performing, at least not exactly, because it hasn't even managed to break the top 10. But anyhow, Disney Entertainment co-chair Alan Bergman, assessing the state of past, present, and future Star Wars TV projects for Vulture, said that, as it relates to Acolyte, we were happy with our performance, but it wasn't where we needed it to be, given the cost structure of that title, quite frankly, to go and make a season 2. So that's the reason why we didn't renew it. Bergman went on to say that they've seen some growth with the recently launched Skeleton Crew, while the reviews have been excellent. So, like I said, they are trying to spin this, but come on. We were happy with the performance of the show, but we canceled it because we didn't make any money. That's what he said as it pertains to The Acolyte, with a whole bunch of extra weasel words, just trying to get out of having to blatantly say that, man, we really screwed up. And then to go on and try to tell us that there's some growth with Skeleton Crew? I mean, my dude, you haven't even cracked the top 10 with this show. There has been no growth, at least not relative to the performance of The Acolyte, which performed so poorly that nobody watched it. This franchise is in the gutter, right where it belongs, As usual, the media tries to blame fans for being racist and shit like that, but that's just par for the course. It's how we got here in the first place, and I find it funny that they still cannot take any criticisms seriously. But I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your mockery of Kathleen Kennedy and her failing Star Wars brand into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.